Have you ever noticed how fast this happens? Someone asks how you're doing, and before your brain even processes the fact that you've had a terrible week, your mouth has already said, "I'm fine." And just like that, the conversation closed. And honestly, we've all done it. Every single one of us has played this game at some point. We hide sadness because it feels heavy. We swallow the anger because nobody wants to be that person. We dial down the excitement, so we don't seem like we're showing off. But here's the interesting part. This isn't random behavior. It isn't some personality glitch. Emotion suppression is literally a regulation strategy. It's a way we negotiate with the world to keep ourselves safe. In many situations, hiding is a social skill. You smile at work because professionalism demands it. You stay neutral in the group chat because you don't want drama. You show up cheerful at family gatherings because keeping the peace feels a whole lot easier than being real. From the outside, you look stable. On the inside, there's basically a full-time filter running nonstop, moderating your every feeling like an overworked content reviewer. And that filter? It's usually adaptation, not dysfunction. You learned it for a reason. But here's where it gets worth paying attention to when that filter stops being a choice and starts being automatic. When "I'm fine" becomes your default answer to practically everything, regardless of what's actually going on. That's when it's worth asking, how did this become the setting I live on? Psychologically, the brain acts like a strict security guard at a front door. Before it lets any emotion out, it runs a quick checklist. Is this safe? Is this going to backfire? Will this change how they see me? Researchers describe this process as social risk evaluation, where the brain constantly balances emotional honesty with social safety. And a few psychological patterns tend to influence this decision. One is fear of judgment, often connected to vulnerability. Expressing sadness, insecurity, or frustration can feel risky because it may change how others perceive us. Another factor is self-silencing, where people minimize their feelings to avoid burdening others. Many individuals learn to become low maintenance, handling struggles privately instead of asking for support. There's also conflict avoidance. Some people dislike tension so much that expressing anger or disappointment feels dangerous, especially if maintaining harmony in relationships is a priority. And then there's the sneaky one, identity maintenance. People naturally try to behave in ways that match how they see themselves. Someone who identifies as the strong one, the calm one, or the responsible one may suppress emotions that don't fit that role. Over time, emotional expression becomes filtered not only by social expectations, but also by personal identity. Picture this, she's the strong one. In her friend group, she's the rational, low-maintenance anchor. But lately she's drowning in work, and underneath all of it, she's deeply lonely. She knows this. She feels it. And she still stays in character. Because here's what terrifies her. If she starts crying, she might not be able to stop. And worse than that, the version of herself that everyone counts on might crack. The capable one might not look so capable anymore. For her, hiding isn't a choice. It's a cage. She performs stability for everyone else while declaring a quiet war on the peace inside herself. But here's the part nobody really talks about enough. Sometimes, hiding emotions isn't about fear. It's exhaustion. There's this very specific kind of fatigue that comes from trying to be seen by people who aren't actually looking. And if you've ever been there, you know exactly what this feels like. You gathered your courage. You opened up. You tried to explain exactly how you felt. And somehow, it still got lost. Instead of being understood, you were told you are too sensitive or overreacting. And this is where the confusion sets in. You start to doubt your own voice. You think, I've adjusted my tone. I was as clear as I could possibly be, so why am I still being misread? You try again. You rephrase. You edit yourself. You shrink. But when every attempt to be understood only leads to more judgment or conflict, you hit a wall. You realize that the conversation has turned into an endless explanation. The explanation became an argument. And eventually, you're just too tired to justify your feelings anymore. This leads to emotional withdrawal. At that point, silence stops being avoidance. It becomes the easier option. Not because the emotions disappear, far from it. Your inner world is still just as vivid and intense. But you've decided to stop inviting people into a space they don't know how to respect. Silence becomes a sanctuary. It's the boundary you draw when you're simply too tired to keep explaining your heart to people who forgot their glasses. Sometimes, silence isn't emotional distance. It's emotional conservation. If this is where you are right now, I want you to know that your silence isn't a failure. It's a resting point. But here's the honest truth about hiding emotions. It works. It keeps the peace. It avoids the mess. It protects you socially. It's actually a pretty brilliant survival move. But protection isn't free. There's an invisible cost to wearing the mask for too long. One of them is isolation. And not the obvious kind. You can be in a room full of people who love you and still feel completely alone. Because they're not seeing you, they're only seeing the mask. The second one is sneakier. When you spend years editing your feelings, staying in character, keeping the filter on, you can slowly lose your own signal. This is emotional numbing. And here's the frustrating part. The brain isn't great at selectively suppressing emotions. When someone constantly turns down sadness, anger, or vulnerability, they often end up dulling positive emotions as well. Over time, a person might start asking themselves a strange question. Am I actually okay, or am I just very good at pretending? The mask is heavy, and eventually, the weight of carrying it becomes more painful than the risk of taking it off. It stops being protection. It starts being a burden. And over time, that burden doesn't just stay emotional. It starts showing up in the body too. There's one thing. You don't owe the world your vulnerability. There's a difference between hiding emotions and choosing privacy. Hiding is a reaction to fear. It's a wall you build because you don't feel safe. Privacy, on the other hand, is a boundary you build because you value yourself. One comes from running away. The other comes from knowing your own worth. Not everyone deserves a front row seat to your inner world. Emotional openness doesn't mean becoming an open book to everyone. It means choosing who is safe enough to see the real you. Privacy is empowering. It says, I am in control of who gets to see my heart. When you stop hiding from everyone and start choosing privacy for yourself, the mask starts to feel a lot lighter. Because you're not performing anymore. You're just being selective. And that's not the same thing at all. Not all emotional hiding is unhealthy. Sometimes it's maturity. Sometimes it's timing. Sometimes it's protection. Healthy emotional expression isn't about radical honesty with everyone all the time. It's about conscious choice. But if I'm fine has become your autopilot answer to basically everything, if your silence only protects others from the discomfort of your truth, then it's time for a gentle change. Ask yourself honestly, are you choosing silence? Or is silence choosing you? Maybe the real question isn't, why do I hide emotions? But rather, which emotion do I hide the most? Is your I'm fine actually protecting you? Or is it just familiar? When did hiding it become the default? Because awareness is where emotional honesty begins. You don't have to rip the mask off all at once. Just try being honest with yourself first. If this hit close to home and you're curious about your own emotional patterns, there's a personality test linked in the description or here, worth checking out if you want to explore what kind of emotional filter you might be running. And if any part of resonated with you, drop a comment. I genuinely love to hear your thoughts. Subscribe if you want more psychology content about understanding how the mind works. Stay curious about your beautiful, messy, human self, and I'll see you in the next video.